All right, Scott. So I think that I can just keep letting everybody in, and
Yeah, I'm just gonna
up to you if you want to get started. Yeah.
I will. So welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining today's webinar, hosted by the Green Business Partnership and the Westchester Community Foundation, called Preserving Land and Legacy and Inspiring Youth to Do the Same. So we know that this continues to be a really challenging time, so we do appreciate that you're taking the time out of your day to be with us here today. And I am optimistic that we are moving toward an era of fewer Zoom events. But this is going to be a really good one, so I'm excited about this one today. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Scott Fernquist. I'm one of 3 program directors for the Green Business Partnership. I'm joined here today by Danny Glazer and Yana Petrakova, also program directors. So before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded. Shortly after the webinar, you will receive a link to the recording, and it will be posted on the GBP website as well. So unless you want to speak, please keep on mute and feel free to use the chat box at any point during the presentation to enter in questions or comments, and we can all see those. So we're turning the tables a little bit today, working with the WCF to highlight some of their fantastic, the programs that they help make possible. You know, this is really an exciting partnership for us. The Community Foundation has been a platinum partner for a number of years, and so we're excited to be co-hosting this event with them today. So I'm personally very interested in this webinar because one of the women that we're going to be discussing, her legacy, is the late Beverly Bender, and I actually live in Beverly Bender's former house in Pound Ridge, so I have a little bit of a connection with her. And she's a little bit of a legend around here, and lots of great stories about her, and maybe we'll hear some today. But she did set up a wonderful fund through the WCF to help support the work of Ward Pound Ridge Reservation and other environmental programs that we're going to be hearing as part of our discussion today. So for those of you who don't know what the GBP is all about, I just want to give a quick overview. So we're now 12 years old. We started in 2009. We are a mission-driven nonprofit organization that awards official Green Business Partnership certification. We try to foster a thriving green business community. So our mission is to engage, educate, and empower organizational leaders and staff to accelerate sustainable business, a critical step toward ensuring a future where all people and communities have equitable access to a safe, clean, healthy, and nourishing environment. So we currently have 160 members, and 62 of those have already achieved Green Business Partnership certification. So we're very thankful to our sponsors, including Con Edison, as well as the WCF, both platinum level sponsors. So I'm going to pass the baton now to Laura Rossi, who will be moderating today's discussion and introducing our speakers. So Laura is the Executive Director of Westchester Community Foundation, a division of the New York Community Trust, which works to improve the quality of life for Westchester County residents by promoting responsible philanthropy and connecting donors to the critical needs in the community. So I've known Laura for a number of years, going way back to 2009 when we first launched the GBP. We served actually on a committee together focused on implementing Westchester County's climate action plan in the municipal sector. And that feels like a lifetime ago, but I'm so happy that we're still able to work through the GBP. I think you're a fantastic leader, Laura, and we're so glad that you could help us with today. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I'm delighted to be here in Zoom land with everybody today. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm particularly pleased because this program today provides the opportunity to tell the stories of the legacies of 2 of our most spectacular donors, Beverly Bender and Henriette Suhr. And both women had talent. They had an eye for beauty, external, and they had inner beauty, and they had a passion for the environment. Both left a lasting gift to all of us, to our community, by making it possible for the Westchester Community Foundation to support environmental programs throughout the county. A number of you may know about the foundation through our grant making. Community foundations were created in order to make it possible for people to leave a lasting legacy for their local community. The best part of what we do is provide people the opportunity to be philanthropists. You do not have to be a billionaire to be a philanthropist. In fact, our foundation is a collection of funds, all of them forming an endowment for the benefit of Westchester. Behind every fund is a fascinating story. These funds were established for various purposes, and those purposes are reflections of a donor or the donors, like a family, particular cause or issue or concern. It is our responsibility to honor the donor's legacy gift by supporting the best possible programs that address the issues or causes or concern of the donor. Now, Scott mentioned that Beverly Bender is a legend in Pound Ridge. She was an active member of the community, and she was a talented artist and a passionate environmentalist. And here you see her with one of her sculptures that she created. In her will, she established a unique fund at the Community Foundation to support environmental causes, and part of the fund is designated. That means that every year a grant is provided to the Friends of the Trailside Nature Museum located at Ward Pound Ridge Reservation. Beverly wanted that gift to provide ongoing support for their many programs, which you will hear about today from Margie Kunhardt. Henriette Suhr was an amazing woman whom I had the opportunity to meet. She was born in Austria, and she spent her early years in Paris, where she attended a branch of the Parsons School of Design. She moved to the United States in 1941 and began a career as an interior designer, first in the home furnishing division at Macy's, and later at Bloomingdale's and Burdines, I. Magnin, and Lord & Taylor. And that's important to know because she had an eye for color, for texture, and for form. She once told me she dreams in 3 dimensions, and she had an incredible commitment to beauty and beauty in horticulture and gardening. And she and her husband, Billy Suhr, who was an art conservator at the Frick Museum, lived in Manhattan. And in 1956, they bought a piece of property in Chappaqua as a weekend retreat. And Frank Watson, who's on this Zoom today, has told me wonderful stories. As every weekend, Henriette and Billy loaded up their car with treats and headed up to Chappaqua, where they entertained, and Billy painted, and Henriette gardened, and gardened, and gardened, and literally transformed this property into a premier garden that today is known as Rocky Hills. It's 13 acres of pure delight and the culmination of 50 years of one woman's vision. Always a popular stop on the Garden Conservancy's open days calendar and known for its rhododendrons and azaleas, peonies, tulips, roses. So Henriette, like Beverly, left a gift to the Community Foundation. She wanted to support environmental causes, and she particularly was interested in supporting the next generation of environmental activists. And you're going to meet one of those, who is our other panelist, Natalie Maldonado. Let me introduce Margie and Natalie to you all now. Margie Kunhardt is a resident of Wacabuck and a longtime member of the board of the Friends of the Trailside Nature Museum. As I said before, it's a museum located within the Ward Pound Ridge Reservation, which is 4,315 acres and the county's largest park. This park, which I am honored to have spent many, many hours in, contains woods, meadows, wet meadows, vernal ponds, evergreens, oak, hickory, maple, streams, rivers to explore, its many trails. The reservation is a biodiversity reserve area and a habitat to many species, which have graciously accommodated all of the visitors who have discovered or rediscovered its amenities this past year. The county's park department website provides a fascinating history of the reservation, but I want to particularly point out that the reservation was home to Native Americans who were the original inhabitants of our land. And I want us to just honor that. The museum hosts many programs and research efforts, and Margie will share some of this, and I know you will be impressed. I would like to introduce Natalie now too, our second panelist. There's Natalie. Natalie is a senior at Saunders Trades and Technical High School in Yonkers. She is also a participant in another program that the foundation has been thrilled to support for many years, Yonkers Partners in Education, which works to prepare students to enroll and succeed in college and share their talents with the world. Now, last summer, at the height of COVID, Natalie participated in a program at Untermyer Gardens, located in the city of Yonkers. So I need to tell you a little bit about the Untermyer Gardens Conservancy. It's a nonprofit that partners with the city of Yonkers to restore the gardens of Samuel Untermyer. He was a fascinating person who was a lawyer, a national figure fighting fascism, and a leader of the Anti-Nazi League, and a prominent member in cultural circles in New York City. And he was passionate about horticulture, and that passion led to the creation of another one of our treasures, Untermyer Gardens. The Untermyer Gardens Conservancy is a terrific organization that is restoring the gardens to their full beauty. And like Ward Pound Ridge Reservation, this is a public amenity available to all of us. The foundation has awarded grants from the Henriette Suhr Fund to support a program specifically designed to introduce the next generation to horticulture. Natalie participated in that program last summer, and she is going to share her experiences with us. So Margie, let's start with you. How did the Friends of the Trailside Nature Museum get started, and why did you become involved?
Oh, okay. Hi. Thanks, Laura. It was such a good introduction. So I was recruited by a wonderful curator, Beth Herr, back in 1992, just maybe a year after we moved to Waukesha from Ossining. And I had little children. I had two little children. Jessie is my oldest, and she was just starting kindergarten. The year we moved here, and we put her in the Trailside Nature Camp. And that's something that keeps going on every year, and it's going to be going on this year, bigger than ever. You know, more students pre-K through entering ninth grade. They have either 1 or 2 week sessions of nature camp for kids, and they're just outdoors hiking and stream studying and meadow studying and learning about the woodland Indian cultures and doing things outside all day long. That was our introduction to Pound Ridge Reservation and Trailside Museum. And then Beth, the curator, invited me the next summer to join the board. So that was some years ago. Trailside Nature Museum was one of the earliest museums in the entire country of its sort, a trailside kind of a nature ecology, learning environment like that. It was built, I think, by CCC people during the Great Depression, and part of that program. But the Friends came into being in the 1970s, in 1974, as an advocacy group, because in those days, county budget problems were leading leaders to consider closing the park altogether, or alternately creating more of a recreational facility out of it, where there would be like maybe golf courses and pools and that kind of thing. And the Friends were organized, they organized themselves to advocate for the conservation and education mission of the park. And attached to the curator who kind of led that mission. So that's what we've been doing ever since. And we have so many things going on there right now. It's very fun to kind of hear about it every time we get together for a meeting, which is 4 or 5 times a year. We get the pleasure of talking to the park superintendent and the museum curator and find out about all the wonderful science and education and that's going on. And we support things at the museum, support projects in the park and at the museum that the county, doesn't have within its budget to support. So mostly educational and outreach to the public and all sorts of things. So science and students and naturalists are doing their to do with, oh, well, the entire scope of flora and fauna. So
And I
that's,
think it's really important to bring out that history that the Friends was created as an advocacy organization. And I think, you know, we have a lot of these types of entities in the county that work alongside the county, but are always there to stand up when, you know, when fiscal constraints can start to, you know, or politics or whatever it is can start to get in the way. It's a very interesting and dynamic role. And certainly as we're
yes.
looking at the need for increased advocacy and efforts to encourage addressing climate change, you know, there's this deep, deep history of environmental activism and a rich environmental community here in Westchester. And I'm thinking about your Jesse and the kids and, you know, the next generation of activists coming up through. But tell us a little bit about some of the scientific research as well that's happening right within the borders of the reservation.
Well, it's fantastic when you think about it. We have naturalists from over the entire park system coming to us to ask us for support in their projects. And so currently we're supporting a bat research project, endangered species of bats, and we've paid for computers, programs and equipment that can monitor bat vocalizations, and we've found that we have a number of species in the park that are endangered, and it just adds to the data that scientists have to work with, because it's such an important, you know, puzzle piece and the whole New York State system of you know, open land. So so students can actually access that data too and learn about, you know, how scientists do their work. And we have a lot of high school students and even middle school students helping us with research. And that includes a turtle tracking program that we've had going for many years, where our naturalists help track wood and painted turtles and find out where they're you know, so in land and what their movements, tracking their movements and counting them to see how many of these endangered species we have. And we have quite a few. And that informs the county's land use management programs too. So there are, you know, just real implications to all of these things. So there's turtle research. Oh, there's otter research. We have river otters. We have a PhD candidate who is one of our naturalists who studies river otters, and she's doing incredible work with them right now. So that's kind of fun. And of course, we have like a deer management program. The county's deer management, you know, director actually lives on the grounds of Ward Pound Ridge Reservation. And, you know, so that's an ongoing question of how to properly manage our deer populations. And so let's see, what else? We have sugar.
Margie,
Yeah.
do you want me to show at the wigwam?
Sure, that would be great. So
We can bring up a visual. As someone who's been on many field trips there as a chaperone, I can. I've been in the wigwam.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, that's
you had told me that there are school children or
Yeah.
in the before times, right before COVID,
Right.
coming from a broad area. How many folks are visiting? And there's the wigwam there near the museum. How
Yep.
many folks have been visiting traditionally the reservation and learning a little bit about the natural resources and the research going on at the reservation?
Well, so there are two components to that answer. One is school groups that we normally would get, which number in the many thousands of school students from the whole tri-state area, you know, come for school programs, you know, led by the naturalists at Trailside Nature Museum. And that's a huge part of, you know, creating this environmental literacy kind of that we hope in the next generation. So the Woodlands Indian programs is one of the main things they love to come for. That's, you know, a critical part of the grade school curriculum in New York State. And the Friends of Trailside Museum pay for this natural materials wigwam, among other things. That's a major thing that we donated to the museum, and that needs to be replenished every 10 or 15 years because it breaks down. And it's built in the traditional manner by people who are, tribal members actually in Connecticut. And so that's there to help with the teaching of that curriculum. And then anyone who comes to the reservation, of course, can enjoy that and learn about it too. They have a native maple sugaring program that school groups come for, where not only do we have modern maple sugaring equipment and teach that, and offer that to the community too, for adopting a tree. Families can adopt a tree and tap it and use the equipment, the evaporators, to make their own maple syrup. But we have a Woodland Indians maple sugaring program where we find out how Indians did it before there were things as metals and evaporators and all that stuff. So they do that. There's archaeology programs. And then there's thousands and thousands of people who come just as visitors to take advantage.
And it's been a tremendous, I think, solace and amenity to folks, during this past difficult year. But, you mentioned environmental literacy as well as, learning about our Native American heritage. And I think that's a great opportunity to segue over to hearing a little bit from Natalie.
Yeah.
Who lives in Yonkers. And I'm curious, Natalie, what intrigued you or interested you in participating in this horticulture program last summer?
Well, I've never jumped at an opportunity as quick as I did with that one because I knew that I would be outside, and being inside locked in for so many months with COVID and everything, I was so excited to interact with other people and be in the vicinity of just a place that would be so peaceful, just looking out at the vista and just working on nature is what really interested me.
So what parts of the garden did you work on? And if you want Scott to show some pictures, because folks, she worked hard.
Yes, so in the beginning, in the morning, we worked on the lower part of the park, which is where the vista is located. And that park wasn't open to the public yet because obviously we were working on it. So we worked on the vegetable garden and the tree orchard, and those were those two levels. And there we dug up this edging, which you can see actually in this picture, was installed by Samuel Untermyer a very long time ago. So basically we were refurbishing this design and to create a newer one. So that's what we did in the morning part. And then in the afternoon, we went into the woodland part of the park and we created a path for others to walk, so it wouldn't be as unlevel as it was, because obviously this is a raw part of the park. So we worked on creating a safer alternative for others to explore this park.
And how many students were in the program last summer?
Yes, it was 7, including myself.
All high school students?
Yes.
And did you know anybody else in the program?
Yes, I knew Darius. Actually, he was in one of the pictures. He's from my high school as well, and he's part of YPI. And then I actually met someone from YPI that I hadn't really talked to before, but we've seen each other briefly, so that was great.
So what was the best part of the summer?
Well, the best part of the summer for me was obviously the finale, just seeing our finished work and like knowing that I created something as amazing as that was. And I'm not just saying that because I did it and like our team did it. It's just something I was so proud of because it was something for our community and something that others would see and interact with. So that was just, I felt blessed to be able to do that.
Well, thank you for all your efforts. I want to take a step back, and you are a student at Saunders. What have you been studying at Saunders?
Oh, yes. Well, my day consists of some psychology classes. I take college level English and obviously economics and government, just like the ritual for high schoolers. And then actually I'm part of the fashion major at Saunders High School. So that's we're a trade school. So a lot of people don't notice this, but like obviously the environment and fashion do have a connection, and that is sustainability, because obviously we use a lot of natural textiles, and we obviously want to conserve them and conserve the environment as well. So that's something that I've been getting more into. And actually my lovely teacher had a speaker earlier this year that came in to talk to us about sustainability. And that's also what inspired me to go into sustainability as a major in college.
So when I was reviewing Henriette's life story and her incredible accomplishments as a designer, I thought of you and your interest in fashion. And suddenly I saw the connections, you know, and appreciation for, they're not that far apart really, and appreciation for beauty, both in all its forms. But I'm thrilled that you were not afraid to get into the soil and put the t-shirt on and wheelbarrow. That's really, really important. You know, as Margie was saying, the next, you know, environmental literacy, I think, has to come in lots of ways, but primarily through direct experience with being outdoors. And I think in a place like Yonkers, you know, it's wonderful to have Untermyer Gardens Conservancy, you know, it's open to the public, but to really have the opportunity to get your hands into the soil is very special indeed.
Yes, I mean, like I like to say that this experience was way more meaningful than I initially thought it would be, because obviously like I came into this as a job and something that I would like be granting my time to, but actually like in the end, I earned something, and that was like realizing my own personal strength, but also gaining a new passion. And that was like the passion for the environment. And I was grateful that I was able to do it. And it was so close to where I am in my community.
So what other activities would you have been doing last summer if this hadn't occurred?
Honestly, I wouldn't have done much over the summer because like obviously there was a pandemic and there was a lot of restrictions, but obviously, yeah, I would have stayed inside, continued my research with college and everything. But once again, I really want to stress this because it is true and it's still like affecting my life right now. But Untermyer really inspired me to solidify my plans for college and like once again choose a major and choose like an area of study that I would be dedicating my life to. And that was like I applied actually to Bennington College and College of the Atlantic for environmental law and advancement of public action. And I just want to briefly share this with you guys because it's very meaningful to me. But in my acceptance letter, in my college essay, I wrote about Untermyer Gardens and my experience with it. And they highlighted that in my acceptance letter, and I really wanted to share it with you guys. So they said, your thoughtful, independent, and creative thinking impressed us. In your application, you wrote, I worked in the blazing heat in a treacherous storm with poison ivy and creepy critters. I did it. I can no longer call myself weak, for I had did what many others couldn't do. Seeing the park in its finished stage made me feel so powerful. These words deeply resonated with the admissions committee. Your intellectual spark will be nurtured and encouraged to thrive at Bennington. So
Oh,
really
we're all applauding. That's wonderful. That's terrific. So I hope you're going to keep gardening however you can. And now I think you had shared you have not been up to Wardtown Ridge Reservation, have you?
But I really would like to. Like I'm really interested in seeing the amazing things that are at the park.
So I'm going to switch back over to Margie and say, so Margie, for a first-time visitor to the reservation,
Yes.
such as a Natalie, what
Yeah.
would you recommend?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so much. I mean, there's so much park.
Yeah.
It would be fun to go walk along the river and walk through the Hemlock Gorge and the rushing river and just see how the rivers move, the river and the forest meld into the wide open meadows and then maybe you could take a hike up the rock trail where you can see Indian carvings on some of these, Neolithic Indian carvings on some of the big boulders up there in the way back part of the reservation. That's very fun to do, and it's a beautiful, quiet part, well, the whole park is pretty quiet anyway, but it's a really kind of out of the way place to go.
It
So,
is. I have heard of some waits for people to get in, but you know, you can picnic and you can camp, and there's an art in the park effort that's going on,
right.
and definitely stop by the museum because the
Yeah.
museum has wonderful things. I'm going to see if we have any questions for our panelists. I think it's, you know, Scott and Danny have designed this so that we can all see each other, which is wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Margie or for Natalie? You can unmute, I guess.
I just chime in.
Yeah.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Hi, my name's Daniel. I recently started working with the Ward Acres Conservancy, which is a relatively new group that's doing some work in Ward Acres in New Rochelle. And I had a question about invasive species, because we have quite a lot of them at the park, and I was just wondering what, and we have a big part of the park that's pretty like sort of nature preserve-ish type of area, or at least that's kind of the plan for it right now. And I was wondering what the approach is in places like Pound Ridge, or if anyone else can speak to this, to invasive species. You know, do you kind of let them because they're there now? Do you try to remove them and replant stuff? Like how do you manage that?
Well, I actually can speak a little bit to that. One of the things that we purchased for the park recently was a Flexwing Mower. We have big meadows at the reservation, and they've been mile a minute weed has been an issue all over the park. In fact, I'm sure you have that too. And so they have a whole regimen of mowing to help contain that. And actually we have interns who come every summer, and actually during the school year as well, to help remove invasives. We have days of volunteer days where people are encouraged to come on specific days and concentrate on an area and remove invasives. But the Flexwing Mower is great because, you know, they have a very narrow window of time between the end of the season when they can even get a mower in there and it doesn't sink into the mud or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when the snakes and the turtles and birds that need those meadow plants haven't migrated yet, so that with climate change that window is shrinking. So that to have a big flexible mower to cover more of that area quickly is a huge advantage. So we bought that for them. Let's see, the other things were, my son actually, when he was in college, worked one summer actually as an intern in the park with a small crew of summer interns, just removing, invasives and then replanting with native plants. So, and that's what he does now as a career. In fact, he works for New York City Parks doing, replanting margins of tidal margins with native plants for more resiliency. So it kind of worked for that.
Invasives are a huge issue. I think one of our first grants from the Bender Fund was for invasive removal, right, Tara? I see Tara here. And that was the goat project, the greatest of all time, but it was bringing goats in to remove invasives. So
that was amazing.
Lots of great pictures of goats. So I don't know if the city of New Rochelle would allow that, but it's kind of a fun, another way that folks are addressing it. There's so much efforts with invasives.
We miss the goats in Pound Ridge. I'm
just so excited someone did the goat thing. Sorry. I'm just so excited someone did the goat thing. I saw that as like, I was researching and I saw the goat thing and I was like, haha, what a funny idea. This would never happen. I'm so excited that someone actually did it.
It really works. They're the best lawn like mowers ever. I mean, they eat everything. So.
They were also incredibly popular.
Yeah.
Sure.
There were t-shirts and everything. I remember.
Yes, the goats, I think, really brought the whole community together. And I think some of Beverly's sculptures were of animals. I kept thinking she would have been pleased by that particular project, right, Marilyn? Marilyn's box is lighting up, so I think Marilyn Shapiro's with us. I think she knows a little bit about that.
I was the crazy goat lady of Pound.
There you are, yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, it was an incredible project. I wish it could have lasted longer, but you know, we did see thinning out of invasives. But I think you really need a concerted effort to do it for a few years. We had a 3-year grant, which was great, which the WCF gave us, and from the Bender Fund. And yeah, I do think she would have loved it. In fact, some of her neighbors volunteered to take care of the goats and water them every day. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So Margie mentioned, with climate change, things changing and how we deal with things such as invasives, et cetera. And so I'm going to ask Natalie a question, which is, is your generation learning about climate change in school, or are you learning about climate change through social media and the general sort of, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a good balance, obviously, through classes like science and classes like global history and all of that. We learn about the environment, but I think I want to say like we take the initiative to learn more and search about projects. I mean, like projects on a more broader scale. So like myself, after I did the Untermyer program, I researched a lot of parks that did similar things, and I wanted to get more involved and see how I can help. Also, other things that are happening in the environment that I can have a positive impact on. And definitely I see myself gravitating towards social media to receive this information. And also I see my friends do the same.
So the colleges that you applied to, you mentioned Bennington and College of the Atlantic. How are they presenting to applicants their engagement on climate change issues?
On their websites, actually, I applied to Vassar and they highlighted one of their like achievements with the environment and actually have a green program to keep carbon emission down and all of that. And I found that really impressive, and that's actually a reason why I applied. And also College of the Atlantic, obviously they brand themselves and are a green school. So when I was on their website and doing research, I saw the many internships and many volunteer opportunities that they have for their students. And Bennington as well, they actually have something called the field work term. And that is over the summer, students get the opportunity to do an internship or a volunteer program of their choice. And most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have to do with the environment. So they definitely tend to highlight them when they're appealing to students.
So if you could make any kind of recommendation to the folks involved in the Green Business Partnership, which is a community of businesses, what would you say?
Well, I would say definitely involve the youth because they definitely have a lot to say, and they are very well educated on these topics. I know it may not seem like it, but these are topics that are important to everyone, and these are topics that are happening right now. And I think a lot of volunteer opportunities would be great because I see myself volunteering a lot, especially when it comes to the environment. So definitely appeal to the youth, appeal to a lot of communities, like really get out there, because now more than ever, people are trying to get involved with the environment and do as much as they can to preserve it. So that's definitely some advice I would give. I mean, the organization is already great in my eyes, so.
That's actually really good advice, Natalie. Thank you for that, because we could actually definitely offer more volunteer opportunities because we know that there's a lot of interest. One thing we have done is worked with youth and recent graduates to train them to work in our businesses as interns to help them get green business certified. But that's a pretty big commitment. So yeah, I think that's a good idea to maybe do something where it's more like a weekend here, a day there, where you can come and help out with a project or something. So.
Yeah, I think, organizations such as Yonkers Partners in Education, the program at Untermyer, the programs at the Friends of Trailside are all giving young people the opportunity to work collaboratively, you can't do it alone. I think it's powerful, right? To see that, a group of 8 can make a difference, and imagine that many times over. it's cooperation, it's collaboration. I think, I'm struck by the themes of generosity and legacy, not only from the folks who established funds with us, but from everybody who's on this call. I mean, everybody who's just engaged in this and cares enough about, whether it's invasives or greenhouse gas emissions. And it is warming up, and the daffodils are coming out, and I'm seeing forsythia, and things are starting to look a little bit brighter. So I'm feeling heartened by what everybody has shared, and I'm very grateful to Margie and to Natalie for joining us and for sharing your experiences. And I hope more folks can get involved and engaged. And thank you to Frank, and thank you to Sam and all of the folks here. I've enjoyed moderating the panel, and I'll just open this up if anybody else has any other questions. I think we could continue the conversation many times over, but it's been a great start.
I would just like to thank you, Laura, and the foundation for the work that you're doing to help in preservation of nature. It's been important. Your own commitment to it has been great. And when you see it transferred to someone like Natalie, who's got her whole life ahead of us, and she's been exposed to nature and the opportunities, both for a career or as a volunteer, to make a difference in the world. And it's nice to hear your voice speaking out for that. I think it's so important. And bring all your friends and have them speak out, because it's going to make a difference in the world, and you can do that. Thank you. And thank you to Wood Pound Ridge. I look forward to getting back up there once we're able to travel again. I can go back to New York. So thank you very much. I love being with you.
Thanks, Frank.
I have a question for Arthur, who says that there's work around composting invasive species. I'm Leola, and I head up the Irvington Invasive Removal Squad, and I've done a lot of invasive removal projects with Prism and whatnot. And this is interesting about the composting. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because it's really complicated. You don't want to throw it in a yard waste pile and have it spread further.
The way we're approaching it is a little different. We're taking the plan. The plan is an ever-moving project. We do on-site commercial composting machines. So what we're doing is the goal is to take the invasive species that have been pretty much hand removed, take them and put them in a large chute wood chipper. And then we're going to take the wood chips and compost them in the machines. So the goal is to take the invasive species, reintroduce them as soil amendment. So you're taking a problem and making it, a better nutrient for the earth.
Okay, so the process heats everything enough so the reproductive material, the seeds and roots and things are all destroyed. Is that what happens?
Correct. It's a 24-hour cycle process. So it's heat, it's proprietary microbes. The heat goes up to 165, 170 degrees. We work with whatever we're putting in to make sure that the temperature's to the right level. There's some fans, and 24 hours later, you have compost that does need to sit for 20 days before you're using it. I can have a private conversation with you if you would like to. I don't want to bore anybody with composting ideas.
No, it's an interesting solution, because we heard today about the use of goats, for example, which can be very helpful on a steep hill and things like that. But it's when you want everything removed. Sometimes you just need to spot remove the invasives, so you don't want the entire thing mowed out. So it's all very complicated.
I mean, our primary focus is food waste, taking food waste and composting that. So we're a relatively new startup with some new technology that we're using.
Wow, that's the way to go. So for our green businesses, make sure you're collecting food waste for composting. That's a great green initiative. We have that in our office as well.
Absolutely. That's something we addressed in the GBP. I did want to read one question. I actually like this question because it's a little bit about action items, next steps, as we leave the webinar and go back to our normal lives. So the question is, how can we help to make sure our parks, both public and private, stay strong and vibrant into the future. You know, what can we do as individuals after this webinar today to make sure that these resources and these beautiful parks stay vibrant? Does anyone have any thoughts?
Well, I think advocacy is a big part of it, you know, and staying involved in local and national politics, because, you know, there's an old saying that environmental battles are never won. They just, you know, get, you know, yeah, the battles are won, the war is never won, you know, and so they just keep coming back, and you have to stay on it. And that's what we've found over the years too. You just have to stay engaged and watch, you know, who's in power and where they want to make cuts, and, you know, support our parks. And you can also join Friends of Trailside Nature Museum, and that helps too. And of course, you know, just using them and spreading the word. So that's.
When there are county budget hearings,
yes,
show up, pay
That's
attention, because that's where I think the parks do need advocates. The folks who are curators and who run many of the programs, we've seen this, you know, we've seen that they were going to be cut some years ago. And a lot of people came out to say this made a tremendous difference to our quality of life. And but you're right, it's without speaking up, decision makers won't know how important it is.
That's right.
Yes, I find even stated policies on, you know, kind of keeping things native and natural in our parks and the county and whatnot. And then you'll see destruction of it with the gas-powered leaf blowers and over mowing. So we have to watch to make sure the dots are connected between the people who maintain and the people who make the policies. I've had that happen with a pollinator garden in our pollinator pathway. And yeah, so you just really have to have eyes everywhere. It's ongoing, like you said.
Henriette, and Frank, you know this, Henriette was well known to decision makers in the town of Newcastle, you know, and had a wealth of knowledge and experience and fierce determination around land use decision making and its impact on the natural environment. And, you know, they honored her, but they knew her too, wouldn't you say, Frank?
Absolutely. You know, I think that oftentimes the public officials who control the purse strings and run these parks aren't aware of the public interest, the need for these parks, and it's an ongoing battle. We're right now involved in that here in Florida because we have a park that is being ignored by the Park Service, and we're having to go out and pound on doors and get people's attention. We'd also want to plug in Westchester County the Land Trust.
Yes.
The Land Trust is doing such a wonderful job, and there's all over the country, the Land Trust are doing a great job, but none better than the Westchester Land Trust. And there's lots of ways to get involved and support them. And they're out constantly. Spring is coming, they'll be out removing invasives from the properties that they control now. So
Lori's here. I see her name here. Lori Ensinger is with us from the Westchester Land Trust. Also, wonderful organization we've been had the pleasure to work with. Is very, very important because protection is key. I'm hopeful that this past year, you know, everybody getting out and the lines, and you know, that people will have a renewed sort of appreciation for our natural resources, just from mental health perspective alone, just how important it has been to get out.
Absolutely. We've had just a boom year in at Ward Pound Ridge Reservation. They were turning people away all spring and summer last year because the park, you know, there wasn't anywhere else to park in the park. So, you know, we were at capacity in terms of parking spaces anyway. And it's been great because I feel like being driven to the parks for recreation and consolation really introduced a lot of people to the county parks who maybe hadn't really paid much attention or been aware of them before. And there was actually an open door policy all summer long too. So there was no fee to enter. So that helped. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's it, unless anyone else has any last minute questions. I just want to, again, thank you so much to the Community Foundation and to our speakers today. I think that was very inspirational, and hopefully you all learned something and will walk away inspired to get involved in your own communities in whatever way you can. So is there anything else you wanted to add, Laura or Danny or anyone?
No, I just thank you to everybody. A special thank you to Margie, and thank you to Natalie, and good luck to Natalie. You have to keep us posted because, you know, we're counting on you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much.
No
for having
pressure,
me.
Natalie, no
No
pressure.
pressure. And thank you, Sam, from YPI, and thanks to everybody who's been on the webinar. Enjoy.
Beautiful
Stay
discussion.
healthy.
Great rest of the day.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.